great to be here. Kind of a little bit of a background. I'm Fraser MacDonald. I'm the project development manager for the Data for Children Collaborative. It's a bit of a mouthful, but and essentially what that means is working in the collaborative to help the build and development and design of the various projects that we have. And my colleague Alex spoke earlier this morning and kind of give a really good broad understanding of who we are and what we are. And I'll delve into that a little bit today. But yeah, we work across a lot of different aspects of this, and it's a really interesting space to work in. And certainly this has been an amazing festival, and thanks very much for giving us the opportunity to talk at it. And I think, you know, looking back through some of the other ones, there's been some incredible conversations and discussions and things that are actually very similar and relevant to us and people who are on very different stages of that journey. And so it's been really, we've gained a lot from that actually, and a lot of learning, and hopefully you guys will gain quite a bit from this to hear how we're dealing with I guess this question that's posed in front of you. And I think I'm surely a lot of people can relate to this, that we're often, when we work in this space, we get asked this question, and you know, show me the impact. Where is your impact? What is your impact? And that's a really difficult question to answer. And I think that's the whole point of this, is how do you genuinely answer that question of impact? Now, this is really the beginning of our journey, and it's us trying to explore new and interesting ways to do that, basically, and demonstrate and illustrate impact. Now, for those that are joining, I noticed when I was first kind of going through the background bits of getting into this, that there's a poll section, and those who work with me, certainly within the Data Lab and Data for Children Collaborative, know that I love a poll. So I've kind of used it, and I've put 3 questions in there that are, we're not going to use that information for anything specifically. It's more just out of interest, really, out of curiosity as to where other people are in their journey and where their current thinking is around impact. And it's more for just us to know who is doing what in that space, really. So please fill it in, and we'll have a kind of quick look at the end and see what the general consensus is. So this question, show me the impact. Well, it's best to start at the beginning, I guess, and kind of just explain who are we? Who is it? What is the Data for Children Collaborative? And it's really important to kind of explain that, because that comes in a bit later down the line. We, and Alex explained this earlier on, we are a partnership between Edinburgh University, UNICEF, and the Scottish Government. Been operating for 3 years. We are currently nested within the Data Lab, and we will be transitioning into the Edinburgh Futures Institute, which we're really excited about. And our role is to leverage the expertise within our partnership and the expertise that they have and that they are aware of to start to tackle some of the really challenging issues that exist using innovative data science techniques and ultimately improve children's lives. So yeah, no big ask, but it's a really new way of thinking, and it's how do we build interesting collaborations to solve some of the most complex problems out there. Now, how do we work? So, and this is really important. So we try and work a bit differently. And this talk, we could talk at length about how we work and the different approaches we use and the methodologies that we're building and creating to address these problems and build collaborations. And I would encourage anyone to have a look on our website at some point to look at those, because unfortunately we don't have time to talk about them here and look at impact collaborations and things like this, but it's a really exciting space to be in. But something that we do work on is our framework of responsible innovation. And that's really important to us. And it's really important that we approach these problems and these projects in the right way, and we use tools to help the teams approach them in the right way and learn how to do these things in the right way. And as we say, it's for the right reason in the right way. And this is our kind of general broad values, is that we commit to being trusted, impactful, transparent, innovative, safe, and agile. Now, a key part of how we work is that idea of building new ways of doing things, new thinking about how collaborations are pulled together. And part of our function, as well as just doing projects, is to, as I kind of think about it, is not necessarily just to deliver innovative projects, but it's to innovate how we deliver and to think differently about that. And that's partly where this stream of activity and what I'm talking about today comes from, is that thinking about how you understand and monitor impact. So if you look at what we've done, and again, I encourage anyone to go into our website and explore us in a little bit more detail. We work across a number of themes: COVID-19, nutrition, population, poverty, mental health. We've now got a new climate change one that's just come on board. That's not in there, but it's a really exciting project we're developing. And we also have an ad hoc, which allows us to do other things. Now, if I kind of spin around that, basically all this slide is demonstrating is that we're doing lots of activity in that space, and we're doing lots of different bits of projects. It's lots of different interesting combinations of people, and yeah, essentially there's a lot going on with us. But in the majority of what we do comes in through UNICEF, one of our partners. However, we do work with other organizations, and they bring challenges to us to look at and consider. One most recently being the Northern Alliance, or also The Promise, which is really interesting work that we're going to be doing with them soon. Now, let's come to the problem at hand. So the problem, and the problem with measuring impact specifically. And it's to kind of discuss this in more detail. So this is what I'm going to present here is a very simple conceptual model of where this problem exists and why this problem exists. So let's just walk through it, shall we? Firstly, if this is an organization, so if this is an organization, a person, an individual, what we need to appreciate is they have their own expectations of impact, of what they feel impact is, what impact could be and should be. Now, for us, as the Data for Children Collaborative, our issue is that we have 3 partner organizations, all with their own kind of perceptions of impact. We have Edinburgh University, we have UNICEF, and we have Scottish Government, and they all try and change and influence and develop the world in all sorts of different ways, and they all try and impact the world in different ways. And we kind of sit in the middle of that, which brings its problem. And something that you need to consider from the very beginning, and something that we tackle with a lot, is essentially that impact can be subjective. Impact means different things to different people. It becomes incredibly hard to report on or quantify or measure impact when it depends who you're talking to, depends how that story lands or what that means, essentially. And so this presents the problem, is how do you effectively measure and demonstrate and show impact when the people that you are reporting to all have a different perception of what that is? And so this is really the journey of how we've tackled that problem. And the first thing we did was we thought, right, well, what do we all agree on? Let's start there. And for us, that's actually a really easy question to answer. So it is essentially just we all want to improve the outcomes for children. That is our kind of goal here. That's built into our vision statement. It's very clear that that's what we want to do. And that's where we start. And that's how we start these conversations. So this is our approach. Now, this is what I'm going to kind of talk you through is how we've taken a theory of change approach to this. And for those that don't know what theory of change is, it's a way of understanding the processes that you are required to go through to reach a goal. And what you essentially do is you start with your end goal, and this is our end goal, this is our impact, and we start with what we do know. So what we do know are all our inputs. They're all the things that we do, essentially, and we know they exist. And to kind of walk through them left to right, we build new governance frameworks, we build new ways of doing things, we open up and provide access to data. We identify data sets. We understand how we bring in data through our data partners, which I'll talk a little bit about later on. We bring in funding. We ourselves are a funding body. We can fund work. We fund a majority of our work, but we also work to identify new sources of funding and help coordinate those bids to try and build up and broaden these projects. We have challenge questions, so that's part of our impact collaborations process. So that's really the kind of route in. So that's all the different things that UNICEF might bring to us or whoever else. We have challenge questions that we present in. There are some of our inputs. We have our infrastructure, so we have facilities that we can gain access to and use either through UNICEF or through the University of Edinburgh. That they can work, teams can work in, teams can store data in, and we create relationships to allow that infrastructure to exist. And we bring collaborative teams of kind of people with expertise and skill sets. We do a lot of engagement. We work with a lot of partners. We educate, we talk to, we discuss what we're doing, how we're doing it, and then we have an expertise network of people who can do certain activities and certain specific skills. So that's all our inputs, and we know that stuff, and we know what that is. But if we start from the top down, and this is something that's kind of key with a theory of change, is that you start from the top down and you work and you say, right, okay, well, to deliver that impact, what are the outcomes we need to do that? So these are our 3 outcomes. These are the way that we define our outcomes. So we need actionable insight, and to kind of summarize that, that is just, we need stuff that allows things to happen. We need the discoveries, the tools, the methods, the approaches that come out of the work that we do to help deliver on that impact. And we need, so I'm just having the moderator pop up here. I just want to check. Perfect. Yeah, so we, to go on that impact. Then we have responsible innovation. Now, this is the creation of frameworks that ensure that stuff is done right. So, and I've mentioned that before. We have, and you may have heard earlier today, Alex made mention to this, that we have our ethics tool, we have our youth participation and engagement tool, we have a kind of legals process that we go through that helps encourage doing things properly, doing it right for the right reasons. And that's fundamental to achieving that impact that we see up there. And the next outcome is knowledge exchange. We need to share knowledge, build partnerships, and create momentum, because this thing that we're doing and that we're creating, it needs to be self-sustaining and it needs to scale. And so that's our 3 outcomes. So we can look at them, we can understand them, we think, right, well, we have our outcomes. What outputs do we need to deliver those outcomes? And if we go to next one, these are the outputs. This is how we define our outputs. So innovation and data collaboration, and that kind of goes back to what I was saying about one of our kind of core purposes is one of our outputs is new ways of doing things. We need to create, we need to challenge the paradigm and how collaborations are built, and that's what we actively do. You don't just deliver innovation, you innovate how you deliver, and that's one of our core outputs. Demand-driven research, I mean, that's kind of obvious with all those different, that's our projects. We need projects to achieve those outcomes and support, inform, and solve some of the kind of major issues. And then last, and by no means least, we need to build a community. And that community needs to be engaged, and they need to be informed, and they need to gain value from interacting with us. And that's a core output of some of the work that we do. So if we go through that, and then we go through a process of thinking, right, well, how does that all link? So how do the various kind of bits of our inputs link to our outputs? And we start to build up a picture here of all the various connections of everything that leads to what is fundamentally that impact. And then once we've done that, we can kind of sit back and go, right, okay, well, what can we measure? We can't really measure impact. Improving outcomes for children is an incredibly difficult thing to quantify and to quantify accurately. So we would say, okay, well, well, what can we measure? Well, we can measure our inputs. We've got a kind of hard and fast way of doing that. That is just day-to-day operations, and we can measure the outputs from those inputs. And that's something that we have a clear sight of, and that we can understand, quantify, and use as a means of telling stories. And that's the kind of important bit here. And so what we essentially do is we say, right, okay, well, we can measure this, we can understand this, and I'm just trying to get the slides to change. Our kind of core goal here is, as long as we keep pushing the pedals on these outputs, as long as we keep delivering these outputs, we know how that filters up, and we've understood how that filters up to create outcomes, and we know how those outcomes, and we believe in, and our stakeholders and our partners believe in, that those outcomes will deliver that impact. And so this is how we approach measuring our impact, is that we say, right, well, we're going to measure and understand our inputs and the outputs that they deliver and how they translate to outcomes. So that's the kind of the mantra we always use internally, and you know, we are surprisingly quite a small team, and we always say, you know, we need to just keep pushing the pedals, just keep making sure that we are doing things in each of this space. Let's just keep doing stuff in each of this space. So how does that translate then? How do we do that? What are we going to do? And it was really interesting. Yesterday, there was some fascinating talks and two of the ones that really hit me was one around CRM development and the kind of understanding you have to go through to create and build a CRM. And of course, that's always one side of it, is a lot of this information and we capture internally, and we have to think about how do you pull that data out, how do you connect it, bring it together in a logical way. And we've had loads of conversations about how you do that during this. And something that I always am keen to say to people is, you know, when you think about this, is if you're not recording that bit of information just through your daily activities, then why are you measuring it? Why are you considering it going up the chain? And so that's something to always think about when you go through this process, and you don't get lost in trying to measure everything. It should really only reflect what you're doing in your day-to-day activities. It shouldn't be an additional step to what you do to try and collect that bit of information. And the other really interesting talk was from Street League, and I feel you know, listening to that conversation yesterday, they are much further down this journey than us, and it's really nice to see where they've got to. And I feel like they've got to a really good place, a really open and transparent place, which kind of echoes what we're trying to do here. And something that we kind of think around is, okay, if you can't communicate impact to everyone, because we think back that's quite a subjective thing and that's hard to do. What you can do is you can be really open and transparent about what you are doing and across all aspects of what you do in a logical framework like this, and let the people looking at it be the judge of that. And it's quite, you have to kind of trust yourself to do that, but it's, you know, I'll show you what we're doing and you tell me whether we're having impact, not me telling you whether we're having impact, because it means different things to different people. And so that's what we're trying to do next. And we kind of seen this a little bit of, well, we've seen a really good example of this from Street League yesterday, but we're now in a place where we're pulling in all that various strands of data from all the various bits of activity that we do daily. And we are creating dashboards that will be open, and we will put them public on our website, and we'll allow people to explore us and see what we're doing, understand what we're doing, no matter what background you come from. These are still very much under development. They're not public yet. There's lots of various strands to doing that we're currently going through. But what we have done is we've managed to pull in all the various data streams, and we're now looking at how best to tell that story, how best to show that data that tells that story to whoever's looking at it. So you'll see here on the slide, these are just some screen grabs from it, and it's a kind of fully interactive. We're all familiar with Power BI dashboards, but no matter kind of who you are or what you're interested in, you can kind of view this and filter this so the way you want it. So if you're interested in COVID-19 projects, you can see our COVID-19 projects. You can see where in the world we're working currently. If you're interested in survey data, administrative data, geospatial data, you can see what we're doing using those data sets, because we pull in and use and combine lots of different data sets. And that sits with our demand-driven research. And then the top right is the kind of the next one, which looks at community. So that's exploring our community, understanding our community. And that's the one I kind of want to focus on a little bit just now and just kind of give a little bit more background detail to. This is our community engagement index. This is a really kind of interesting concept we're going with here, where we're thinking, okay, how you engage with the community, how you work with the community, it shouldn't just be measured in terms of how often you interact with them. It should be the value of how you interact with them. So we created an engagement index, which takes into account all sorts of things like how often we interact with people, what that interaction leads to. And this is all getting pulled in just through our daily activities. The frequency, the regularity, the number of people we engage with at any one time, and it makes it into an index. And you can't see it here on the screen grab, but we've split our community up into 4 groups. So our customers, our data partners, our expertise network, and our strategic partners. Now, this in itself has started to tell stories. And with an index, it's really interesting because you have to backtrack an index and make sure that it's telling you what it is, pulling out the things that you know happened. And that's a good way of testing an index. And we feel like it is. Now, we look at this and I can pull out some things here. I can say, okay, we can see from kind of the beginning of this year, there's been a much more kind of regular engagement and valuable engagement across the whole breadth of our customers, expertise, and strategic partners. Well, that's when we launched impact collaborations. And that's what the aim of that was. Impact collaborations was a means of building and developing and growing engagement across our community. And it's starting to do that. And you've seen a massive peak near the end of the year there. And that's when we launched our big climate change one. And that's when we really started to engage with our community. And then the next bit is this little peak here in the red one. I said I was going to come back to this, and we're really interested in building partnerships with data providers. So your MasterCards, your Facebooks, your Google, your Microsoft. And we've created a data partner community and a network, and we're creating regular engagement with them and getting them involved in projects. And that was a strategic decision we made way back at the beginning of the year, and we're starting to see the value and the growth in that group. And we would want to see that continue going forward. And the reason why the next one is so low is because this is a live screen grab that I pulled from, I think, the beginning of the month. So it will grow because we've got lots of plans with them. But so what this is essentially doing is allowing us to look at our outputs, look at our what we're up to, what we're doing across our portfolio work, and start to tell stories of what that's developing. And I think that's really the kind of key thing. And I'm just, in the interest of time, what I want to kind of close this up with is the key lessons we've learned from going through this process. And I think this is so important. And the first one is that this is an iterative process. This is and we have to communicate to our partners. We're not going to get this right first time round. We have to keep looking at it, revising it, working with it, getting feedback. We don't know the answer. We feel like we're kind of going into new territory here, and it's important that our partners come along with us on that journey. The next one here is just our kind of basic mantra that if you want to manage different perspectives, then a good way of doing that is to aim for full transparency. If you can be fully transparent about what you're doing, let the people you're communicating that to judge whether you're having an impact. And that's quite a bold statement to make, but I feel like it's a really powerful one to do as well. And then this last one kind of summarizes most of it, is try to avoid quantifying your impact. It's really hard to put a number against impact. And if you do it, you're most likely, you might get it wrong. Instead, use the things that you can put numbers against, so your KPIs and your outcomes, to tell the stories that result in impact. And I kind of demonstrated a small example of that in terms of how we can start to look at our community and the numbers we're getting back for that, and how that's really telling that story. And I think that's I'm to finish at 12:40. So I'm just going to kind of close up and say, follow us online, join our mailing list. You can submit impact collaborations, go online, have a look at them. You can offer your skills. You can get involved in some really cool projects, or you can just get in touch for a chat through our Twitter feed, through LinkedIn, through our website. Thank you. And that's me. And you can drop me a message on Twitter if needs be.